Hey y'all, it's Irene here. Hello. I wanted to come in and do a quick live, do a update. I'm not sure how long this is going to be. I have a few notes here. It's going to revolve around something that my team and I have been doing really the last year. So, as some of you know, I offer online courses, as many of you know that. And before this, I was in private practice, working with people in private practice, seeing people one-on-one, teaching group classes, big classes, classes from 10 people to 35 people, not just here in Vancouver, but internationally, the USA, Europe, the UK. And one of the things that I always sort of had my mind set on was teaching others how to do this work. Teaching others how to do this work. And this is not something I enter into lightly. So what I want to cover in this short, we'll see how short it is, live, is what my team and I have been doing the last year as we prepare, as we research and develop a curriculum for a professional training for those who wish to, I guess you could say, become somatic trauma practitioners. Now, there's no actual proper name for this. The way that, say, a medical doctor is called a physician, or a clinical psychologist is called a clinical psychologist, and you go to school to do that thing. Or, of course, if we take another subject, a lawyer goes to law school, and then they, of course, specialize in whatever they wish to do. So this world of somatic healing, nervous system, working with trauma, working with the body, working with the mind-body, it's really important to understand how new this is. The fact that my predecessors, I think of Peter Levine, and those who say taught me Feldenkrais, they're still alive, right? A lot of the people that put this work on the map, they are still alive, which shows us how embryonic this work is. Now, the other thing that's important to know is, to this day, there's no actual school where someone would go to study. Just like if you want to study law or you want to study medicine, you go to a university setting or a college setting. You have to do prerequisites, you have to apply. Just because you apply does not mean you get in. And then it's rigorous training for usually a minimum of 4 years, but it's normally closer to 6, even for some 7 if they specialize. I hope that makes sense. I hope you're seeing where I'm going with this. So just put that aside for a second. Now, I started learning about the human body and our physiology back in 1993. I have 2 degrees in science, one in applied, we would call it applied science. Here in Canada, we call it kinesiology, but it's exercise science, health science, fitness science, rehabilitation science. And then I have a master's degree in biomedical and health science and research. So before I got into working at the level of the mind-body and neuroplasticity and healing at the nervous system level and working with trauma at the somatic level and early trauma and all the traumas that I talk about, I had already done close to 13 years of post-secondary education. Now, I'm not saying that one has to do that, but it does season you to become a scholar and a student. I learned how to study, how to take notes, how to read papers, how to apply, how to integrate into the real world. How to volunteer, how to create your own practices for learning. When I got into the mind-body world with the Feldenkrais method, there wasn't any extracurricular work. So you went to the training 3 times a year in person for 4 years, and those in-person trainings were from 2 to 4 weeks long, which seems like a lot, but if you consider how much time you would spend in medical school or law school being in class, in practicums, all these things, it doesn't even compare. So the Feldenkrais training was about an 800-hour training over the course of 4 years. Now, what that didn't offer us was homework. You, as the student, had to take it upon yourself to study, to practice, to read. There was no required reading. There was no testing outside of class. There were only 2 practicums in 4 years. Imagine if a medical doctor only had 2 practicums in their entire medical degree. That would be unheard of, right? So I'm laying this foundation for a second, for a reason. So bear with me here. So Feldenkrais training was 4 years, as I said, 3 times a year in person, 2 weeks to 4 weeks long, away from home, sleeping in shitty situations, sharing rooms, sharing kitchens, all these things, like you were at school. The SE training, the somatic experiencing training, not as intensive. It really is, in the end, only 32 days of training over 3, we would say, levels: beginning, intermediate, and advanced. Now, you had to do some private work on your own. You had to do some consultation. I haven't done the hours. Maybe I should do that one day, but in the grand scheme of a training, it is very minimal. And I would say that my expertise, my knowledge, my understanding of multiple topics came from me continuing after the SE training to go to as many master classes that Peter Levine was teaching. I then was allowed and able to assist at these master classes. I also assisted the beginning and intermediate SE trainings. And then after 5-6 years in this SE world, I started studying with Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. They were my last real full mentors, teachers, learning about early trauma, developmental trauma, working with the stress organs, working with all the pieces that really are essential for restoring safety back to an individual's system. So if you're, taking notes of what I'm saying, if we consider my Feldenkrais world, my SE world, and then my early trauma world, not to mention I was already trained to teach groups in the fitness realm before then, this is a huge, we could say, pedigree of learning and studying and being put under pressure and late nights and all these things. So what occurred in the last year is my team and I did R&D, research and development, for how we would run a full-fledged professional training. And the cohorts were small. We did 10 weeks and 12 weeks. And in those 12 weeks, my students did amazing. There was a lot of regulation, there was a lot of learning, but what people, I think, really landed on was doing this work for ourselves is very different than doing this work with other people, or teaching this work to an entire group of people, or to a sea of people that you can't even see online. It is a very different experience. But what I found is that these students who had already gone through Smart Body, Smart Mind, and most of them, this is my 12-week curriculum, had done Smart Body, Smart Mind 2, 3, 4 times. This is my 12-week curriculum. They were primed and ready, for the most part, to do deeper work, but also many of them didn't imagine how activated and dysregulating it would be to try to teach this work and do this with other people. And we weren't even doing trauma work. We were doing basic skills of leading people through orienting, following impulse, feeling the ground under us, noticing breath, noticing potent posture, real basic principles that are essential, but not even getting into spicy territory of someone's trauma, let alone staying regulated in your own body while you work with this, or while you work with, say, a group of 10, 12, 30, 50 people. So what that showed me is, A, we can totally teach this, and it does so much better when we have this foundation. So that would be the first thing, is smart body, smart mind will be the prerequisite to go further with me in professional training. But just because you've done this doesn't mean that you will be accepted into the professional training. It's going to be like medical school. You have to apply, you have to show your base level regulation is high enough, your capacity is high enough to literally be put on the spot and tested. And this won't be, you know, a hazing kind of situation where we're ridiculing and putting people under pressure, nothing like that, but it will be as much as we can to mimic real life. We will also, in the full training, this didn't happen in R&D because you can only do so much in 12 weeks, we will have our students do practicums with people from the public in person, not just online. So that will be the next thing. For those who have said, I can only do a training with you online, Irene, you cannot be trained to do this work with people physically, working with traumas and all of the guts and glory that comes with, by only doing online training. Maybe someone will prove me wrong in the future. I think a lot can be taught online, just as I've seen, obviously, with Smart Body, Smart Mind and my other courses. You as the person doing this personally, you can do so much with yourself with an online course. But imagine if you were to try to teach a medical doctor or a dental hygienist or a nurse or a first responder how to do that work online with no in-person time, scenarios that are completely off the cuff, that are not planned, thinking on the spot, quickly, fast, with empathy, with connection, knowing when to slow down, knowing when to speed up, all these sorts of things. So that will be the first thing I will say. No way will anyone go through my doors and get a stamp of, we could say, approval and certification within my Scientuitive, this is what my training will be called, my Scientuitive levels training. It will not happen if it's only online. So it will require travel to here, either Canada, or we will have a location in Europe, most likely continental Europe, potentially in the States, but right now for North America, it's going to be here in British Columbia where I live. And then we'll have one, we could say, satellite location in Europe, which I am in the midst of looking into right now. So back to this R&D of what we did the last year with these two cohorts of people who were my Smart Body, Smart Mind members. It was very clear as we progressed how 2 hours a week with maybe 30 minutes to an hour and a half of homework, and it's not enough, right? So this is the other thing. This will require some commitment of really thinking about this as real school. Now, when I was mentioning my trajectory of learning from, say, when I began Feldenkrais in 2004 to really when I end, not that you end, but when most of my formal training ended it was about 2016-ish, 17, it was about 2017. So do the math, 2004 to 2017. That's a lot of time. And while I was working in that time, I would say a lot of my time was spent traveling and learning, and I had the resources to do that, which was, of course, wonderful. I understand not everybody has those resources. So this is something else we're considering, is how this will occur in a way that enables the younger people, the younger folk, to get in to do this work kind of at the same age I was, which was late 20s, early 30s. wouldn't it be wonderful if this could start in our mid-20s so that by the time we were 30, we were beginning practitioners ready to go out and start a practice? Now, I'm not saying that one whom is over the age of 50, for example, or 60 cannot begin this work, but one of the other prerequisites will be that you are going to do this work. And this was the trouble I saw specifically more so in my Feldenkrais days, is the people that were in the trainings for the most part were just doing it as a hobby. They were doing it as a hobby. They weren't doing it because they wanted to bring the work out into the world. And this is one, not all, but one of the reasons why we have seen a decline. I don't even think it's a decline because there was never an incline. Why we haven't seen a rise in people knowing about that specific work. There just wasn't enough youth on board with enough energy and gumption and interest to start careers, to be business people. You have to be a business man or lady person to do this work. There is no marketing firm that is there waiting to help you get clients. Unless, of course, you find a holistic center where they are looking for someone who is trained in these things and they are willing to promote you and all those things. But usually that doesn't happen until you've already got quite a bit of skill and quite a bit of experience. So that's the other thing I want to put into your minds for those here that want to work with me and learn with me in the future to be a professional. You have to be more of a business person than a trauma person. You have to learn business, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn the markets and how to charge and how to be okay charging money and how to process money and how to do your books and your accounting and write to teach people what this is. That is a huge part of this. And I've seen so many great healers and helpers not go anywhere because they just give everything away for free. They feel shame in charging what they are worth. And we have to change that. We have to realize that this is real work and it deserves to be paid. And of course, in that perfect world, it's covered by the money fairy, you know. But even here in Canada, I pay out of pocket for pretty much every single healing thing I do, with the exception if I get a surgery or I get an x-ray or an ultrasound. That is covered, but even my teeth cleaning is out of pocket, eye exams out of pocket, all out of pocket, right? So there are healthcare providers who have to charge, and that's the same for us in this work. At this point, there's no any other way around it. We just have to be comfortable asking for a fee, and a fee that will allow us to have a roof over our head and buy food and pay for electricity, pay for our children to do the things they need to do, right? So again, this is why I say this interest in mine of working with people who want to do this more than just a hobby, but as an actual career and profession. So that is the level that I'm looking for in this future professional training, this Scientuitive professional training. If you feel that that is you, and you know that doing this work is what you want to do, not just because it helped you. This is the other thing, and maybe I'll end with this. I've seen quite a few people who enter into trainings. I'll speak to, say, the somatic experiencing world, because it helped them. And so there's this natural allure. I better learn this so I can do this work with others because it helped me so much. This doesn't always work. Not everyone is cut out to do this work, and there's no shame in that. Just like I know I would suck at being a carpenter. I do not have that skill. I tried in high school, not good, right? So I enjoy carpentry, I enjoy woodwork, all that stuff, but that does not mean that I should do that as a profession. And it's the same with this stuff. And what I'm seeing, and I don't know what this phenomena is. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. But I'm seeing this explosion of people whom want to do this work because it helps them. Now, that might be a valid cause, and perhaps that is their mission here on planet Earth right now. Great. But check that internal compass. Do you really want to do this because this is what you want to do for a job, not because it sounds cool? When I travel, I rarely tell people what I do. I prefer not telling people what I do. When I meet people, I will say it's complicated. When they ask, what do you do for your work? I really don't like to share. So that's the other thing. Put yourself in that situation. If you were off and someone asks you what you do you get a little peacock feathering, when you're, I'm a trauma specialist. I work with the nervous system. Isn't that cool? If you find yourself doing that, of course, this is my opinion, but watch that, because then there's something going on there where we're wanting to maybe show that I don't even know what it is. I certainly don't go to bed thinking about all the good work I do, and I don't wake up in the morning thinking about all the work I do. I just get up and I go to work. And when I know I have to make a video, like I wanted to make this one, I just show up and I do it. So that might seem a little strange, but I want to save some people from investing their time, their money, their energy, their years, their life into studying this when maybe this isn't what they're supposed to be doing as a practitioner. Maybe you want to work in this field, but as a supporting role, as a supporting, actor, actress to someone who's doing this work, a nonprofit, working for a shelter. Maybe you'd rather have an understanding of the nervous system work, but you're really good at keeping books. You like accounting, right? Maybe that's what you're meant to do. Or maybe you are really good at marketing, but you just don't want to do this nitty-gritty nervous system work. So I also put that out there because I saw it in my own trainings. It doesn't go well when someone's intentions aren't clean and clear and they go into this for showmanship and to be cool. So it's something that, just consider. If you're like, oh yes, I want to do this, consider why it is that you want to do this. Someone asks, will you have options for an add-on of sort if someone is already an SEP? That's a great question. So we had in our last 2 cohorts, three SEPs, full-on people who are practitioners and practicing. They benefited a lot from the 10 weeks. So one could say that yes, we might have a special track, but at this point, everyone's kind of in the same boat. We've had some people who are just starting to do SE, and how do I say this? The SE training is great, but it's still not enough. So much of my learning about how to present and talk was not learned in the SE training. It was through doing acting classes and working with coaches on how to express and show up in rooms with people who were not trauma informed at all, right? So this will be a big part of this. It will be the trauma work, the somatic work, the theory, the group work, the personal work, but it's also going to be demanding a higher level for you as the individual to become really a master teacher and a master practitioner that can be with a massive group of people and teach them and lead them. So I'm looking for a very specific sort of candidate, I guess you could say. As I mentioned, it took me from 2004 to 2017 to really get here. I don't think it needs to take that long, but I do think it needs a solid couple, if not 4 years of this kind of learning and this kind of diligent apprenticeship for us to get to a high level that I think we should be at. And this goes beyond SE. This goes way beyond SE and what is learned in that training. Again, nothing wrong with SE training. I did that training. It was a huge part of my development. I'm not going to try to copy it by any means, but there's a level of refinement that we're adding. And then, of course, the Feldenkrais elements are huge. Huge, huge, huge. We need to bring the movement. We need to bring the developmental movement patterns in. If you are interested in learning more about Smart Body, Smart Mind, head to my site. Go to Smart Body, Smart Mind. If you have any specific questions that are not answered on the site, there is a long frequently asked questions page. Please read that. Everything you really need to know is on the SBSM website, so please check that out. How long would we need to travel for? That's still not determined, but it would be a minimum of 3 times a year and a minimum of most likely 7 days at a time, preferably closer to 10 days, 2 weeks. So, you know, this isn't a weekend workshop, right? So again, I go back to what would you do to get a medical degree? What would you do to get a law degree? That's essentially what I have done in this world. And what I've seen is that those who don't demand that level of training and skill and learning for themselves, it's not to say that you can't do some good work, but you will struggle. I know that's a bit of a big thing to say, but to really be skilled at this level is to be able to be dropped anywhere in the world with your brain and your hands and your body and your intention and your empathy and your attention, and you can work with anything, anyone, even animals that come in front of you. Now, of course, I'm not saying surgery or anything like that. You know, this is not medicine from that perspective, but someone who is struggling, someone who has anxiety, depression, freeze, panic attacks, phobias, back pain, right? This is about becoming an apprentice at a level that is high. No, being a licensed marriage and family therapist will not be a requirement. The requirement will be to be have completed all of the Smart Body, Smart Mind training course. That is the prerequisite. And as I mentioned, that does not necessarily mean that you will be accepted. I'm looking for people to become master practitioners. If you're a master practitioner, you can teach. So this is one of the things that we did in this beta, these cohorts that I just ran. One of the primary lessons was to teach peers about the biology of stress, about trauma, about the nervous system. They had to pick a topic and they had to show up on Zoom with, I don't remember, it was 4 to 6 of their peers, and they had to teach. Some people had props, some people had slides, some people just had it memorized. And some folks did great, and some folks were so freaking nervous. Even though they know this off the top of their brain, the moment you're put in that teaching situation, everything changes. So to practice this work means to teach it. And that is what I believe is missing in a lot of our base level trainings. There is no testing, no competency, no, here is a question, answer it in front of these 20 people. And if they have questions, you have to take the questions and you have to answer all the questions, right? So if you go back to some of my Q&As that I used to do a lot more a couple of years ago, questions would come in, questions. When I used to do the Q&A in Smart Body, Smart Mind, questions, all sorts of questions. Maybe 1 to 5% of the time I might need to go look at a reference, but mostly not. Most of it is in my brain from lived experience and from reading and from learning and from being in trainings, sitting and watching mentors work hours on end. Hours on end. I did a whole other Feldenkrais training just by watching my mentor, Jeff, work. I audited and I sat there and I watched and I learned again. So they come, it's both to me. A practitioner is a teacher. A practitioner is a teacher, and a teacher is a practitioner. All right, so just a reminder, right now, my team and I are in the midst of researching and developing a professional training for people who want to become master scientuitive practitioners. This is what I consider myself to be and some of my top level colleagues to be. And to be considered for this, you must have completed in its entirety, Smart Body, Smart Mind. Most of the students that applied and worked with me the last year have done Smart Body, Smart Mind multiple times. And the one thing that was very clear for them, and of course this is not everybody, but most of them, was doing this work for yourself is very different than doing this work as a profession for others. So take that seriously, right? Is this something that you want to do for your career, to make money, to feed yourself and your children? Very important to really consider that. This work is still new, still not something that's widely accepted around the world, so it will require work to get this work out there. But of course we need more people to do this work because there's very few of us that are around and available for one-on-one work. I stopped my private practice because I saw a need in the online space so that people, not people who just want to do this for their career, but general everyday people, they needed to learn this information. They needed to heal at this level. Was not enough to be one-on-one with one person. And so the next sort of stage of my work, and you could say my business, is to create a training so that we can bring this work out to more people. If you are interested in learning about Smart Body, Smart Mind, all that information is on my website. Just look for Smart Body, Smart Mind. If there's a question, when you've taken like an hour to look through that site and you've read all of the FAQ questions and there's still a question that you have, email my support team, support@irenelyon.com. They will answer your questions to the best of their ability. And then the next round, the next time we run another cohort will most likely be the end of 2024. That's what we're thinking. And when we enter into that, it is not something that will be over in 3 months. This will be a 3 to 4 year level training with different levels. So this is not a weekend workshop kind of deal. It will require travel, most likely 3 times a year at the minimum, being in person for those trainings. We could say 7 to 10, 14 days at a time. Consider this like real school, right? This isn't again just a weekend workshop where you get a few credits. It's a full kind of training that I want to do. And that's everything. Thank you everyone for your time and your attention, and we'll keep you updated as more progresses, as we know more, as I know more. I do not want to jump into this quickly. This is a serious enterprise. This is a serious commitment, and wanting to really map out all the ways in which this can work, maybe ways that it won't work, so that we make sure that we launch this in a way that is sound and regulated.